I just did I just had a game against a 22-22 that I wanted to share with you guys. Um, you see here, I'm rated 2145, and that rating's no longer provisional. I crossed whatever threshold it is to not have it provisional anymore. So I'm playing pretty well right now, and I wanted to. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording for this particular game, but I was playing around, playing some 3 minute with 2 second increment, and I got in the game against. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that. He's a 22-22. I say he. They are a 22-22. Um, and they chose the French defense. And you saw in a previous stream, I like to play the Papa Gambit in the French defense, and I wanted to give a little I guess a little tutorial on that line because not a lot of people play it. Saw a couple recent examples in Grandmaster Chess. Um, Cannot remember who it was that went and played it, but it was pretty good games, and White won a couple games in it. And it's a gambit by White, but I'm gonna show you from the perspective of Black, since Black's the one playing the defense. I want you to see where the attack's coming from. Now this is again the Papa. It's called the Papa Ticulot Gambit. I'm not sure who Ticulot is, but Mike Papa is a national master from Thibodaux, Louisiana. His highest rating he achieved was something along the lines of 2230, I believe. But he's been playing this gambit his entire career. He wrote a book on it. It's called The Papa Gambit in the French Defense. I know Mike Papa personally. He's a great player, great friend, and this book was exhaustive. It went through every line. It went through the best lines against it, including the line that is as close to a refutation as Mike will admit. And I'll show you that. But we're gonna have Stockfish running here in the background, just to give you an idea where we're at in the game. Um, so the French defense and the Papa Gambit starts with B3 on the second move. D5 is the almost universal response. If black chooses C5, you can go into the similar lines, but I'll show you. So here, Mike Papa analyzed, and I have found from experience with it that sticking to French principles here with C5 is the best reply. You're going to get the same piece development as normal French defense. You're going to get the same bad bishop here. White's not going to take unless he wants an open game, and that's what he was going for. Because a lot of this opening is psychological. Somebody plays the French defense, they want a stodgy defense against e4. They want to play a game where they're probably going to have better in-game prospects. They're not going for tactics right out of the opening, and the Papa Gambit kind of forces them into it. So if you want an open game, you can do that. And you see it just showed up, the French defense, the Horowitz attack, Papa Ticulot Gambit. Again, I don't know who Ticulot is, but Mike Papa um, did. I'm sure Ticulot did plenty of work in the opening as well, but Papa covered it exhaustively. So after takes is where we start to enter the Papa Gambit. Knight c3 is obvious. Knight f6 is what's usually used to cover. Now you can defend with f5. This is not unplayable. Mike Papa uh, recommends following up with f3 in his book, which is how I've always. It goes into this line. I'm not used to playing it from this side, but whatever they were to play next, like say they were to play a knight f6, I'm coming bishop c4, and we'll pile on this pawn. And eventually he's going to have to push that pawn, and when he does, he's going to have to take an extra move in order to castle, in order to get the king over, because the bishop's cutting off this square. And you can even, sometimes you castle kingside. Usually in this opening you want to castle queenside, but it does offer a good bit of flexibility. G4 is the Papa Gambit. So I saw a recent Grandmaster game where a different line was chosen. I want to say it was Queen E2, which, according to Stockfish, is the correct move. Papa Gambit is launching straight G4, and of course the threat is to come straight forward with the pawn to dislodge the knight to capture back the piece with superior development. What it also does, and a lot of people, you'll see from the next move, a lot of people don't even take this into account, is it vacates the G2 square for this bishop to come on and attack this pawn as well. So here, H6, and the follow-up is bishop to G2. Now here, the computer move is bishop to D7. Another move that some humans find and some engines even recommend is queen to D4. And it looks weird because you're putting yourself in the line of fire from the bishop. But really, the only way to protect that bishop is this. And what has that really accomplished? The knight's offsides now. The the bishop is, it's a great bishop. It's going to continue to be a great bishop all game. But the queen, you can't really dislodge it too easily. Come back, and now you got to move the knight back, right? I mean, it's you're allowing black the development that you really don't want him to have. So with that, let's see, where were we? I'll go back to the game we actually played. He played bishop to e7. Now here I could take, because I have two attackers against one defender, right? But I chose to play queen e2. Both are good. He can't defend the pawn any other way. It's not like I allowed this to remain a gambit pawn. Here I chose to take back finally. And the way I like to play this is to move back to d3, because often the king side's open. He's going to want to castle king side. I want to get my pieces pointed at the king side, and I'm planning a pawn storm. And I want to support that with this battery here. So bishop to d3, b6. And of course he's threatening to bring the bishop here. And it's pretty. It's going to be a really good diagonal for him once he does. This is playable, f3 is playable, and knight f3 is playable, and I choose knight f3 just to continue development, and I know I can move the rook on the next move. Now, if he takes here, I'm prepared to take here, even though it might not be best. I want to open up the position. That's why I played the opening. So bishop b7, rook to g1. He played rook g8, and this is a mistake, according to Stockfish and just positionally. I castled queenside. He played a5. Now here, a5 again loses a whole pawn in valuation. Stockfish recommends the immediate knight to e5, which is good. Absolutely. I like to answer a5 with a4 just to blunt any kind of pawn push and opening up of the file. It takes them longer if you play a4. That was my idea behind it, and I knew I'd be able to get in knight e5 soon anyway. The only way to prevent knight e5 here is bishop d6, and it's not really preventing. I'm still going to play it, and I'm still going to trade off a good bishop for a knight. So I'm happy with that. But he played bishop b4, to which I responded knight e5. And after queen e7, I got the bishop check. Now because this c6 square is covered with the knight and the bishop, he can't push, so he has to move his king. Now, this is the piece activity that you look for out of this opening. You got all three minor pieces are great here. You got a great light square bishop, great dark square bishop, great knight. You got a rook supporting a pawn storm. It's just going to be one more pawn needs to get in for it to be a storm, right? It could be either one. And the rook supporting it. This rook is yet to really get into the game, but there are a lot of lines where the d4 pawn launches straight ahead and this rook never moves and it remains active anyway. So bishop b5 check. He moves king f8. I play bishop c6. Now I know there are probably better ways to go about this, like an immediate f4 is what Stockfish recommends. Bishop to c6 cedes a lot of the advantage. It's trading off a good, basically just trading off a good minor piece that keeps a clamp on c6. My idea was because he hadn't castled and because he gave up castling privileges and his king's in the center, and I have a pawn storm coming, I was okay with putting my major pieces on the files and launching straight ahead. So in doing so, I was trading off these two pieces for these two pieces. And I was able to do that. And again, it ceded a lot of my advantage in doing so. I misplayed that according to computer evaluation, but ultimately I got what I wanted out of it. So I was happy. And you can see I still have a pretty solid advantage here. So c6, I go ahead with my pawn storm, g5. And here I make what Stockfish tells me is a big mistake and play g6. f6. Instead of g6, apparently I should have played rook to g4 to keep it going with the idea of rook to e4. Then the pawn push, as this pawn can't continue to be supported. So f6, rook d to e1. He plays e5, and already I'm starting to see ideas of getting something on the f-file in front of the king and taking here. You see I got the bishop pointed there. I got the majors pointed there. So I just need to get something on the f-file for that to work. Takes, and onto the f-file. And now I'm threatening this pawn. So he plays king e7. And here I see that pawn protecting that square and nothing else guarding it. So I see I can take here anyway. And that was the big moment in the game, him allowing that. He's not going to take with the queen. The rook comes down. So takes here. And you see the evaluation go way up. I'm going to grab both rooks. And now his only chance is threatening mate here. And there's a couple ways I can blunt that. I could just move the pawn up. I chose to defend with the queen. And again, there's a few ways to win here. I have forced mate in 6. It's kind of hard to see in a blitz game the exact moves, but I just started checking and seeing if I could pick his knight up with check. He moved on to a dark square, made it easy for me. And here I thought about just coming back to defend a1, but I saw the mate right here. So really, what I wanted to get across with this is just the Papa Gambit, even at the master level of 2200 plus, it can offer a lot of problems to a French defense player. White gets a lot of open lines. There's not a whole ton of tactics. There's not a lot of tricks and traps in the opening. It's really just putting that dark squared bishop on this long diagonal and blunt force straight ahead. Usually when I've gotten crushed in it by really, really high rated players, it's because they were able to open up the A file and attack effectively on it. Or sometimes straight up the C file, they're able to break that open and attack on it. But if you learn to blunt those specific attacks and really to apply pressure early so that those attacks can't form easily, it can really be an effective opening. I'd like to see more grandmasters take it. So thanks, and then hope you enjoyed.